are what your ideal clients are either saying or thinking in their own words. You know how sometimes in messaging and marketing, the question is asked about how would they say it in their own language? How would they say it in their own words? And that's always been important because that's how we as consumers, as clients, as people really hear things.
You're listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 408. And today you're going to discover how to meet your ideal client through using AI. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Melanie Benson, and today I have a really awesome guest joining us, and she has blown my mind. This guest, when we originally met, she really inspired me about the capabilities of AI and to use it in a way that could constructively dissolve a lot of confusion and clarity issues around messaging, ideal clients, and how we bring some of our best content to the market we want to serve. Now, to be clear, I am not a fan of letting AI write your content. This is not what this is about. This is really going to blow your mind. It's going to open up a lot of possibilities. And if you've been struggling to figure out who your ideal client is, you're going to love today's episode. Now, before I introduce you to today's guest, once you know who your ideal client is, the next step is to make sure that the messaging you're creating is really speaking to them, what they need, what's relevant, what's going to move them into deciding right now is the time to solve the problem or to achieve the goal that you are really highly qualified in helping them with. And so once you know who your ideal client is, I want to encourage you to get my brand new resource called the Rocks Method. And this is the system I use to help, or I should say one of the systems I use in the Authority Accelerator to help clients build what I call that lighthouse message, to create really kind of stand out messaging that pulls people into you. So if you don't have this yet and you struggle with messaging, or you find that, hey, this is a stumbling point for me. I could use a easy to follow formula. It's a very simple 4-step formula, but this acts like a little bit of a cheat sheet for you. I want you to go to melaniebenson.com/method, and you can download my Rocks Method and start to learn how to use it. Now, you do need to know who your ideal client is to have this work in your favor. So I think these things work very, very well together. All right, now let's get you into today's episode. You're gonna love it. Welcome back, Amplifiers. Oh my gosh, I've got a treat for you today. I have been waiting for this conversation to share it with you. Today, you're going to meet your ideal client through AI. Now, let me introduce you to my guest. Her name is Amy Yamada. She's a seasoned business coach, a speaker, and an AI marketing expert. And she specializes in authentic messaging and deep human connection. Amy is the founder of Ideal Client AI, offering an AI-based software called the Ideal Client Handbook. It's a customized, done for you, deep qualitative analysis about your ideal client. And I got to tell you, my friends, I have had a peek behind the curtain. I have my Ideal Client Handbook, and it is amazing. So, Amy, thank you so much for being here and sharing your insights around a more human way to use AI right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for the warm introduction. And it's funny whenever I think about AI and what I'm passionate about, and it really is about like the human element with AI. So it can feel like the opposite ends of a spectrum, but I'm excited to just have this conversation with you today. So thank you for having me.
Well, and we had a mutual friend introduce us, and I just feel so blessed when that happens, and I get to connect with somebody who's got some amazing things they're doing. And friends, as you're listening in, I get to talk to people of all kinds. You get to meet a lot of them. And one of the things that just moves me is when people are generous and really like in their heart with how we evolve as collaboration colleagues, as co-creators of awesomeness in the world. And Amy, you definitely demonstrate on all levels. So I think that's a unique thing in the AI world sometimes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just, it's to me, it really is about collaboration and building relationships, in life and in our industry and all of that. And so, anytime I get the chance to serve an audience or serve my friends and colleagues, it's my happy place. So,
Yeah.
happy to do it.
Well, one thing I know about you as we've gotten to know each other is you've not always been in the techie AI world. Like you come out of a different uh, sector of the world, but you somehow landed in AI and now have these extraordinary tools that you're sharing around AI. Give us a little insight into your background and how you ended up having this extraordinary AI tool that's helping so many people grow their businesses.
Yeah, it's funny if we had had a crystal ball even a couple of years ago and it said, Amy, you're going to be in this world of AI and technology and have your own AI product, I would have said, wrong person. That's not even possible. But I definitely would have been wrong. So, the through line of what has been a part of my heart and I know my purpose has all been about around deep human connection and communication and in the entrepreneurial space. It's about messaging, how we connect with our audience and not make it all about us, but really make it about how we can be in highest service to them. And so when I think about my journey, I've had my business for a little over 12 years now, and came from the corporate world for about 15 years in the media. I've always just thought about like how can I really leverage whatever it is I'm doing to build deeper human connection and to focus on seeking to understand one another. And so when I think about AI, when I think about late 2022 when ChatGPT first came out, I remember hearing little bees buzzing around me saying ChatGPT, ChatGPT, and I'm like, oh geez, another thing, right? Like, she reminds me of when Clubhouse came out. I was like, you have to be on Clubhouse, and so I had no idea what it was, and my partner Ken was like, you got to check this out, and he doesn't get caught up in hype ever. Even then, I was like, yeah, I'll get to that. I'm busy. And so one day he sat down with me with his laptop and he just opened it up. He's like, watch this. And he prompted ChatGPT and immediately it wrote an email. I said, what is this? And so I was hooked in that I was impressed by the productivity and the efficiency of it. What I was not hooked on was what it was writing. So I was impressed by what it was able to do, but also being someone who geeks out on messaging and authenticity, I thought, I want to give this thing a chance because I can see that this could be life changing. However, if I'm using it for things like copywriting and content creation, if it doesn't sound like my voice, I'm not using it because that would go against everything in my being. So long story short, we experimented with it, had a lot of late nights of just geeking out on prompting and all that, which now seems like a decade ago. And we figured out how to bring in kind of my frameworks into it to train AI on my written voice. So that was kind of my starting point. And I did it pretty early on. So it was pretty much a blue ocean at the time. And so I started letting my clients and my audience know, like, hey, I've figured out some ways to train AI on my authentic written voice. And suddenly, like, my opt-ins went through the roof. Everyone's like, I want to learn from you. I'm like, well, I'm no expert. Like, Amy's an expert. I'm like, I'm not an expert. So that's how it's all started. And of course, the last 2 years, I mean, AI continues to move so fast. And we were able to take a few hundred clients through a program to train them on authenticity and authentic marketing with AI. And then we developed our own product, the Ideal Client Handbook. So it's not something I would have ever imagined. And it has been a journey where I continue to both teach and learn at the same time. And it's been great.
Yes. I think embedded in what you just said is you recognize there's a problem in this emerging technology,
Mhm.
and there's also a need in our industry right now. And we were talking about this a little bit in our green room. And so just taking a step back for a second as you're listening in, amplifiers, one of the ways to find your hot offer is to recognize the problem that somebody else is creating and solve it. And I feel like you're doing that here, right? Like there is a problem with AI technology being very unhuman and like so artificial and disconnected. And yet, so many people right now are struggling to really connect with people who need what they do. What are
Yeah.
you seeing in happening right now in our industry around that? And how do you think this is solving a need that so many people have?
Yeah, what I'm seeing is unfortunately a lot of people I can tell are simply copying and pasting from what they're getting from AI, and they're using AI as a task rabbit. And what I
Mhm.
really want to say is that it's not just here to do things for you quickly and sometimes even poorly. It's intelligence. Like if I hate the word artificial because it sounds fake and it's the opposite of authenticity. But the piece I love is intelligence. And so if we think about tapping into its intelligence versus treating it like a task rabbit, then we can think differently even about how we approach it. So for example, initially I was thinking about how have I been able to build a relationship with my audience, right? Whether it's a live audience from a stage or with my email audience or even in front of a small audience, right? It's like how do I build connection? That's a question I get from my clients all the time. And then I thought about, well, if I were to tap into the intelligence of AI to learn even more about my ideal client, I wonder what could be possible. And so, what used to take months and months of market research, interviewing um, individuals that represent my ideal client and trying to see what the golden threads are amongst them, we can now tap into AI to learn about our ideal client so much faster. And it still has this human element. I know it sounds weird, but because it has access to a bazillion parameters in its database, it can collectively tap into the intelligence of what the deepest insights are of who you are meant to serve just based on a few pieces of information. So what I'm encouraging my friends and colleagues and clients and team to do is if you're doing anything that is client facing, make sure that you train AI, whatever AI platform you're using, on who your ideal client is on the deepest level versus just a short, concise description of them. So that's why we developed the Ideal Client Handbook, because it's literally a 28 to 30 page report done for you based on just answering three questions, which people always look like, Amy, I'm skeptical. Like, just trust me on this. It works because it taps into every answer, taps into like the next answer to the next question. And it's woven together beautifully. And it says, here's who your ideal client is. Here's what they are saying. Here's what they think about. So if you prime AI with this information on such a deep level and then interact with it, you're going to get much better outputs from whatever it is that you're brainstorming or creating.
Yeah, and that could be anything from your social media content to emails to, like you said, doing the market research around like what should I be titling things. It's got a lot of applications. And I just want to say, I want to paint this picture really clear. And as you're listening in, I want you to ask yourself, how much are you assuming that you know about what your ideal clients need and want from you right now and what they're willing to pay for? The market has shifted astronomically. And I will just say right now, I don't believe we should assume anything anymore. Like this research, and again, this is going to save them a ton of time to do, but you could go old school and, do 100 market research calls, but you need to be asking people. You need to be tapping into their needs right now, not wait until they're on a phone with you. Like again, I can't say enough about the fact that right now things are changing and we need to be ahead of the game, not just relying on old information.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. And I mean, even as someone who's always focused on messaging, I'm a messaging girl, right?
Hmm.
Whenever I've generated my own ideal client handbook based on our system, I have noticed my own gaps of messaging with my ideal client. Plus, as you said, the market has shifted. And sometimes we have chosen to shift who we target as an ideal client, right? Like I've talked to a lot of even established entrepreneurs who have shifted their target ideal client several times over the years. And so what worked before, as far as positioning, messaging, communication, doesn't work now for who you want to serve. And so the times that I've generated my own ideal client handbook, I have been like surprised, like, oh wow, like I never would have thought about that being something that is so top of mind. And then I think about the conversations I have had with potential clients and licensing partners, that kind of thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that person just said something like that. So it can be both validating, it can fill in these gaps that we may be missing. And then also can help us to speak to the whole person versus just the piece of them that relates to what you offer, if that makes sense. So for
Yes.
example, with my audience, what I noticed both in the Ideal Client Handbook, and then it's been validating to have conversations with both newer and very established entrepreneurs, is they're all saying the same thing. They're like, Amy, honestly, I feel behind when it comes to AI. And it's not even wanting to know how to use it. I want to know what to even use it for based on what I'm up to in my business. And so I noticed this in the Ideal Client Handbook, and I noticed that there was like a vulnerability there around feeling behind.
Mm.
Whereas, for a while it's like, oh, AI, like, let me teach you how to master AI or how to build out these things. But instead of speaking into like, hey, let me just get you up to speed on it because it sounds like you're feeling behind, and kind of share with you in a very simplified conversation of like, here's what's happening, and here's how we can meet you where you are right now, and here's what we can work on to get you, up to date on how you can leverage it in your business. So even having that kind of positioning and languaging for me, for my ideal clients and partners, has been essential and helpful. And as I tweaked my own messaging with, workshops and masterclasses, I noticed it in the metrics, right? My opt-ins went up, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, thank you, Amy. Now you're speaking my language." I'm like, "Oh,
Mm.
so helpful to have those insights that were from AI." So
I
yeah.
love it. I love this. So you mentioned these questions, and I think anybody that's dabbled in AI, we know that the quality of the inputs determine the quality of the output.
Yes.
And you've done a lot of research around this, a lot of testing, a lot of finagling and finessing the questions that you're using. What are like two of the essential questions that you think people need to be prompting right now?
Yeah, I would actually say the questions they need to initially answer to be able to communicate with AI about is are number one,
Mm.
what is your purpose? Like, why do you do what you do? And then number two, what is your desired transformation or outcome for your ideal client? And when you're able to answer those two questions and communicate that with ChatGPT or Claude or whichever platform you're using, then you can have an interaction with the AI platform to learn more insights about who you're meant to serve at this point in your journey. And again, some of it may be validating, some of it may be surprising. And then these are the same questions that we use in our very brief intake form for the Ideal Client Handbook, because even if your answers are short and concise, there's a lot that can be inferred from AI based on how you answer those questions. So it can be one of my colleagues who had his Ideal Client Handbook generated. He was one of the ones who's like, Amy, I admit to you, I was skeptical because how could I only answer three questions, two questions, and then describe my business and get back such an in-depth, accurate report? And his exact words were, "It was frighteningly accurate." And that's what we strive for, right? It's like, yes, because then it'll help you to have those really great inputs into AI. But even just being able to answer those two questions and then put them into, one of these platforms, you can learn a lot about your ideal client and get these deeper insights.
Okay, to save everybody from rewinding right now and going, wait, what were those two
Yeah.
questions again? What am I?
Yeah.
What's my purpose?
What is your purpose?
And
And
what's my
then what's your
transformation?
what's your desired transformation for your ideal client?
So I wonder, like, this is maybe so curious, how many times people who are service-based or coaches, consultants, trainers, any of that, they actually don't know how to answer those two questions.
Yeah, we've had that comment before. We've got that feedback like, oh my gosh, it feels like, what is the purpose of life? Like, it's too big. Which is one of the reasons why we also include three additional credits. So if you feel like you messed up, even though you really can't mess up, but if you want to answer them differently, you can get that. But actually, something, Melanie, that we created because people were kind of struggling with those questions is we developed a custom built GPT, so an AI tool. I'd be happy to just give you the link to that also, so that way you can share it with the audience here. But
Yeah.
essentially, it looks, for those who don't know what a custom GPT is, it's kind of like your own custom built chat GPT, but it's like, it's got these instructions in the back end. Anyway, more than you need to know. So essentially you'll go to this link, it'll open up a window where you do need to be signed into chat GPT. Even if you have a free account, it's totally fine. And then all you do is you copy and paste either a bio about you. Hopefully you have a bio. If not, write one, even if it's a rough draft. Or if you have copy on an about me page, you copy and paste it into this GPT, and then it'll reflect back to you what, based on that bio or that about me copy, what your purpose and your desired transformation is for your ideal client. So that way it just makes it super easy.
That's helpful. As you're listening in, I know you know what you're passionate about, and I know you know what your transformation is, but sometimes putting it into words, right? The messaging is where people struggle so much. Just like, okay, how do I say that in a sentence? So this is good. Like you have a prompt that'll actually help them answer some of those questions, and that's going to be really helpful for you in all of your messaging.
Yeah, for sure. And that, I mean, even being able to answer those questions, I found, like, as a speaker, I think it's really powerful to be able to get on the stage, whether it's an in-person stage or a virtual stage, and say, here's why I do what I do, right? My purpose is this, here's why I do it, because that way it becomes more interesting that it's not just about the content you're sharing, it's about you as a human being. And people are curious about who they're learning from. And then with that second question on my desired transformation for you is, or another way to say that I find beautiful and poetic is, my wish for you is, right? Like if you could wish something for your ideal clients, what would that be? And then you can use that on stage if you want. You say, here's what I wish for you. And when you speak from your heart and say what's real for you, and you know it's real for your ideal client, they will feel very seen and understood by you. So
I love
I
that.
definitely recommend doing this, and let it be messy. It's going to evolve over time anyway. May as well say what's really in your heart, and then know that it might be different tomorrow or a month or 6 months from now, and that's okay too.
So you already talked a little bit about some of the insights that could come out of understanding your ideal client and how you kind of created this chat GPT handbook that helps people get that. But, I think when you understand copy, you understand messaging, you also know that there might be some really deep emotional insights, maybe some um, triggers or some unspoken needs that people have. Like, can your tool or AI in general help people access some of that information about their ideal clients?
Yeah, for sure. So I always tell people that my personal favorite elements of this ideal client handbook that's customized and done for you are the parts that are in quotes. And so the parts that are in quotes are what your ideal clients are either saying or thinking in their own words. You know how sometimes in messaging and marketing, the question is asked about, how would they say it in their own language? How would they say it in their own words? And that's always been important, because that's how we as consumers, as clients, as people really hear things, is that if it resonates with us. If it doesn't resonate, and if it's like, if I use a lot of AI jargon, unless you're in the AI space, you're gonna be like, why is she talking about API keys and tokens and like all these things that are of zero interest to a lot of people. And so my point of this is that I found, even before AI, when we can say things that are in the hearts and minds of our audience, they will lean in instead of tuning out. And these days, as we know, the attention span is so much shorter than it's ever been. We're so distracted all the time with all these screens and messages coming at us all everywhere. We're surrounded by them. And so it's when we can break through the noise, not by being the loudest, but by saying the very thing that is in their heads and in their hearts. And so prior to AI, I mean, prior to and even during this time that we're in, I have taught people how to tap into that type of messaging. And now with the help of AI and with the Ideal Client Handbook, it will just be given to you. So for example, part of this report, this Ideal Client Handbook, it'll share with you the top 10 fears, frustrations, and limiting beliefs of your ideal client. And it'll say how they share those fears, frustrations, and limiting beliefs in their own words. Mm-hmm. And so even if you took one of them and inserted it into a story that you shared, or even in email copy or a landing page copy, it would hit home with your ideal client, because that's exactly what they're thinking and feeling and saying. So even my one of the things that I love about this is at the very end, there's even a journal entry, a sample journal entry of what your ideal client would say that's very vulnerable to them. So it is giving you this golden key of how to speak their language or write in their language so that it really appeals to them and has them responding to you.
I have chills right now. It's just, I mean, it's just so powerful. And, as you're listening in, like one of the things that it took me a really long time to learn about marketing in general is that the language we use matters. Like you can come from your heart and bring the fire and passion. And ultimately, all of that counts for a lot, but the words have to match what it is that your ideal client is seeking right now. And that's that resonance. And I use the word relevance, you're using resonance, but it's kind of the same thing in a way. It's like you need your language to go, oh my gosh, Amy's talking to me right now, or Melanie's talking to me, or what, whoever's name. And that's what moves people out of that stupor that so many people land in, that paralysis of, I don't even know I need something to, oh, wow, I need to pay attention. Like before Amy put this on my radar, I was like, AI schmai, it's like I'm not interested. And then I started seeing what Amy's doing and a couple of my other colleagues around AI, and I was like, okay, I'm paying attention now. And I think that's what really happens with that relevance. And, you create this deep desire and compelling energy. So I love this so much. Let's talk about the elephant in the room around AI, because I think that, and you talked about this a little bit, but I just want to make sure we've really covered this, is we all have this feeling of, oh my gosh, I've seen the AI content. It's stale. It's generic. I know AI wrote it. I want to hear your thoughts on that. And how do we overcome that kind of obstacle with using AI content?
Yeah, there's a couple things. First of all, I would say that if you're using AI to create content, I like to think of it as use AI to brainstorm ideas of what type of content to write about, and then also to not simply copy and paste what it has created. It can get close if you know how to use it. The way that I overcame this myself was once we developed this ideal client handbook, I always prime it with my ideal client handbook, no matter what kind of copy or content I want it to create for me, so that it deeply understands my ideal client. And then also putting in your unique writing style. So there's a way that you can have AI analyze your unique writing style and come up with what I consider like your fingerprint of your unique writing style. I'm just going to jot this down, Melanie, because I'm happy to give you this GPT as well. We actually built a GPT that analyzes your unique writing style, and then it reflects back to you these different components of your writing style. So that way, anytime you use AI, you can just copy and paste this.
By the way, we're putting the hot emoji next to this right now because this is a super hot prompt. I love it.
Yeah, this and it's super easy. Like you just all you do is put in a sample of your writing. I mean, people are like, well, what kind of sample? I'm like, just even a few paragraphs of anything that you've written that you feel like this is how I like to write. This is how I want it to be duplicated in terms of my style. The most recent one I did, I actually grabbed a post that I wrote all by myself without AI. It was like a social media post that I did, and I had to analyze my unique writing style, and then it'll reflect back to you kind of the way in which you speak, the style, the tone, um, the pattern, like the rhetorical patterns. It has basically it's described in a way that AI can understand it. So when you have these different components of your style, then anytime you prime AI with your inputs, you can give it your ideal client handbook and your unique writing style, and then have it write for you, but initially brainstorm with you. So there's just a process around it. But even having those two primers, then it will help you to be able to have the copy or content it creates for you close to what you want it to be. And then, then just make it your own. So like my team always says, okay, Amy, it's time for you to Amyfy it or Melanieify it, right? Like make sure it's you. If you're the face and the voice of your brand, then just go in and put it in a Google Doc and do a quick edit. It's not the end of the world, right? But it's so much better to start with something versus nothing. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. And then just make sure you look at the words that AI tends to use that just are like nails on a chalkboard, like skyrocket, delve, right? Like it has these words that have a cringe factor. We actually have a whole blacklist of words. Like they were like, we don't want to.
That's a new chat GPT prompt to do, like how to strip your AI tool from using these overly AI'd words.
Totally. Sometimes when I get really annoyed with AI, I'll even with all my magic tips and tricks, I'll say, okay, now please try again and write it as if a human being wrote it, and then I
Mm.
get something better. So I'm like, oh, good. It's fun.
Well, Amy, you have some exciting stuff coming up. Really, I'm super jazzed for some things that you got going on. What would be the best next step for someone to take with you right now?
Yeah, so I know we're going to share this link here. So right now we have a really fun event coming up, virtual event and masterclass coming up called Get Up to Speed with AI. And so if you're tuning into this before this event happens, then go ahead, either way, click on the link either way. And if it's still coming up, then you'll be able to join us either live or get access to the replays of the different segments of this. I'm also going to have some incredible AI experts coming in and even industry leaders who don't consider themselves AI experts, but they are finding ways to leverage AI in their business. So we're solving for the problem of what should I be using it for, and how are the industry leaders approaching AI? What is their perspective? What are they using it for, and why? And so there's going to be some really juicy conversations happening, and some guidance, some tools. And if you happen upon this link after this event has happened, then we always have another masterclass coming up, or something that keeps you ahead of the curve when it comes to leveraging AI in a way that we don't have it replace our fabulous human beingness, but instead how we can both raise our human intelligence as we optimize artificial intelligence. So definitely grab
Nice.
that link, opt in. I want to hook you up and help everyone to see how they can, use it in a way that feels good and not in the way that feels like this is super scary. I feel so far behind, right? It's just more like, no, let's embrace it because it's not going away. It's not some trend. To me, it's as revolutionary as the internet. It's as revolutionary as email. It's as revolutionary as smartphones. And at some point, I couldn't imagine carrying a phone. I'm dating myself now, right? Carrying a phone with me everywhere I go, and now it's so much more than a phone, right? And I can't imagine not having it. So I would say, don't be scared of it. Just learn to embrace it and just take it one step at a time. But yeah, hopefully you'll join us for our masterclass or an upcoming masterclass. Would love to see you there.
Yeah. And you might be shocked as you're listening in, but I will be one of the influential leaders talking about how we're using AI, which I never thought I would do in a million years. So
Yeah.
you definitely want to tune into this experience, because some of the things that people are doing with AI and keeping it human are so extraordinary and so um, it's just like really mind expanding to see what's possible right now. So Amy, I'm excited for it. Okay, so we will make sure all the links are in the show notes for all the things that Amy's sharing. So wherever you're listening to this, go down and look at the show notes so you can access all this cool stuff. So Amy, this is the time in my conversation that I like to ask a couple fun questions so people can get to know a little bit more about you and your humanness. What would you say is the boldest thing that you've done that maybe even surprised yourself that you did it, and it ended up really amplifying the success and the impact in your business?
Mm. Okay, the first thing that comes to my heart and mind is my stepdaughter, who I just feel I'm so connected with. I have two amazing stepkids, Josie and Grayson. Josie, before I met her, so before I met her, she was 7 years old. She launched her own charity called Josie's Well, where she learned about children her age that didn't have access to clean water, and she decided
Oh.
to raise money to build wells in Ghana. And when I met her, I thought, gosh, she's so young, and she had already raised $10,000 and had a well built in Ghana, bringing clean water to people there. And I just thought, what am I doing with my life? Like she's done more in her young years, like these way less years than me. So I got behind her vision. I said, it sounds like you like speaking on stages. And she's like, yeah, I do. She had spoken at school assemblies and connected with local businesses. And so because I'm connected with many influencers, I said, well, how would you like to do a little speaking virtual tour and speak at my in-person events? And so I was honored to get behind her vision and go from her raising of $10,000 to over $90,000. And then in 2019, thankfully, it was before the pandemic, we actually got to go to northern Ghana and and see these villages, went to 10 villages and see the water that was brought to them. And while I know this isn't necessarily like a businessy answer, it was really powerful to bring together entrepreneurs that really want to make a positive difference in the world, to get behind her vision and to share their stage with her and to literally save lives and bring water to those in need. And it just expanded my heart, expanded my vision of what's possible.
Mm.
And it just reminded me of how, just like this name here, how important it is to amplify your voice and to be in service to this world that we're on, So it definitely was a game changer for me.
Wow, that's powerful. And you know what I'm listening to you, I'm thinking like how much more amplification we have when we collaborate,
Yes.
right? It's just like a simple little thing. And of course, she's your bonus child, so you're going to lean into her, passions. But like as a business rule, you can do so much more when you're co-creating and collaborating than you can on your own. So such a great, wise, and poignant message there. Thank you. All right, last question.
Yes.
As you look back from today all the way to the beginning of starting this business,
Yeah.
was there something that you now go, why did I wait so long to do that? This could have really propelled me faster if I'd done it sooner.
Mm. Yes. The first thing that comes to my heart is to stop putting people on a pedestal. When I was in my first few
Mm.
years of being an entrepreneur and I saw the people that had this massive following and these beautiful brand images and social media presence, whatever they had going on for them, I had this imaginary pedestal. I'm like, oh, I wish I could be where they are now. Or gosh, of course it worked for them because they've got X, Y, and Z going for them. Just in this comparison BS, to be honest. There was a moment I was at a mastermind event many years ago, and I saw this success panel on the stage, and I just made a decision to be on that stage the next year. And I thought, there's no reason why I can't do it. There's no reason why I can't create my own success story, and not just financially speaking, but just in every aspect of what does success look like for me, and how can I not just be the person that's on that stage, but to raise the vibration of others around me as well, to say, hey, if there's something that you want to create, let's do it, and let's do it now. Let's not wait. Life is precious. And so I would say, just start. It's like one of my mantras that I learned from Jesse Itzler: just start. Like it just, once you start, you're in it, right? So
Yeah.
ask yourself, what does my success story look like, and just go all in. It's all good. You got this.
Love it. Such a great place to wrap up. Thank you so much. And I love what you're doing, Amy. I love the heart-based approach you're taking to AI and humanizing it and providing such an important and valuable asset for all of the entrepreneurs and impact-driven people out there. So thank you. And I can't wait to hear how you, as you're listening in, go grab the resources, check out the tools, join us for the series that Amy's doing, and let's figure out how we can make your impact even bigger and more powerful by using tools that will shortcut your path to connecting with your ideal clients. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Melanie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. We're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.